This is the house I was blessed to have for 24 years. And then opposite, just now, it's interesting, isn't it? Just now, an estate is being built, something through that gate. So that's going to change things in terms of people getting on and off the island up this main road, I would think. Only a little bit though. It's already pretty crowded at certain times of the day. But isn't it? It's just so real. This thing about our energies are being sapped by mortgages and identification with places, and it's deliberate. It's a brilliant plan because when you think about it, someone must have sat down and worked out the energies required, or maybe it's principalities and powers did it. But everybody needs a home, and then the strategy of getting men and women to work to provide twice the income, which meant houses shot up in the 80s and 90s. And now just to have the basics of life, you more or less have to have two people out there working. And you're, as free as you want to be. This is why Abundant Life Ministries, by the way, caught on to this really early, and they were told only to rent. But the problem with renting is you're losing money. You've got nothing to show for anything unless you use or some way. The thing is, with Abundant Life people, they were entrepreneurial. Under Tony Fitzgerald and lots of others, they were an entrepreneurial, faith-believing, money-believing church, set of churches. And you've got to have that. If you're going to rent, you've got to do something with your freedom. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because rentals are even higher, if anything, now than a mortgage. And it's only useful if you've got money in the background. But sinking all your money into a house is also insane, because that's a huge amount of money of your life energy put into what is just basically, in other places like Amish people, you build in a day. The whole thing is ludicrous. So you got, it's like systematically worked out that the prices then rise falsely because you've got two people out working. And then a young single person can't even get on the housing ladder. And then you get this bitter divide between the younger generation and the older generation, just about the time that you introduce euthanasia. And the frictions will lead to old people feeling, oh, well, I'm not worth anything anymore, and you may as well just kill me. It's superb strategy. And it is a culling strategy. This is always the work of the spirit that is dealing with culling. And it deals with culling, as much as people try to deny it, pyramid shapes cannot work. So as much as it is ludicrous to have a Luke or a Mark saying all the life is sunny and manageable and we can get by and have this basic confidence in self, we're in a spiritual war, mate. And how real and tangible these things are. I mean, people speak about shape-shifting. People speak about, demonized families with long heritage of being demonized, and exactly what happens within that realm. I'm just a normie, basically, apart from understanding positive supernatural, get like the basic charismatic idea of realizing supernatural is real. But, your average bod never meets these deeply, deeply occult settings. So how much is coming from the machinations of demonized brains, and how much is literally taken over people being, what do you mean? I was trying to say something with the word ducked in, you know, where principalities and powers are actually programming things on Earth, even through humans in a direct way. There have been some, reports online of people turning around in these dark places of the Pentagon, and they realized they weren't completely human. So, who do you believe? But isn't it mad? So a whole generation of us that were all geared to go for Jesus and, see people converted and whatever, we got ourselves hitched up in these houses as much as the world system, and our energy has been depleted. So I'm 67, and how much of my energy has been just to keep this little house going and to obviously supply for family and whatever. But then Christine, around the time of the 2008 crash, and also feeling really, she's not the sort of person that can hang around in a workshop on her own. She needs people. So she always had a yen to do nursing, and she got into nursing, and then it's quite a decent salary. I mean, it's not the best, but it is a decent salary. And, then you become sort of a person with autonomy in your own right. So it's a very interesting generation that we're in. But I don't know what's going to happen the way ahead. The Lord will show us how to move and to function. But what a thing. Just being responsible for a house, and nowadays the utilities being yanked up so high. One beneficial thing might be that it's forcing people to think really seriously about installing infrastructure for the time ahead. Solar panels, various insulation systems, because the government weren't going to pay for it. They're not going to pay for all this stuff. So they're getting us to do it. But it always was that way. If you think about all the utilities, were always paid by the working class, and then once the utilities are installed, they're sold out privately. So it's theft. And what happened in Russia, it was full theft, because it just got sold to mafia guys and oligarchs. That's all of USSR's hard-worked infrastructure, paid for over, 2 or 3 generations, 40 generations, just given over instantly to these oligarchs. So much is just in the way of theft. Communism is theft. It's not distribution of wealth. It's distribution of wealth upwards. And everyone had the same amount, but equal and pretty low. They just had enough to keep people on a hamster wheel, and very, we got food, we got water, we got housing, we got health, we got a library, we got sports centres. But how much does that cost compared with what they could have had with all their man hours going to their own, enterprises and whatever? So communism is stupid. But the Church of God, Acts 2, self for others spirit, no, that's different. But Marxism isn't self for others. It's very much seeing other people as trees walking. What can you get out of them? And that's the world system. We're not that. we are of immense consequence and there's an immense spiritual reality going on. But we have been in a lying culture now for 200 years, where the Protocols of Elders of Zion actually state the public must never, ever realize who they truly are, or else they will overthrow us. Well, I think it's a generation to overthrow, don't you? It's a generation where we need to rise. Now, Dan Aston Gregory is of the whole generation that are all about entering back into spirituality, but not necessarily the Jesus reality. But at least they're recognizing that there's spiritual reality going on, whereas we were taught there's been nothing. And that, as I've been writing a lot, is an entire con, because Tavistock Institute, created around 1920, was created to brainwash the world. That's its subtext. What it presented to the masses was about mental health and psychological astuteness, and but what it actually was always about brainwashing. And at the very top, they're well spiritual. They're right into the occult. And the bottom end is explaining away the fourth quartile, this willow tree quartile of the world population, who go around disguising themselves, because if they ever reveal their reality, it's so offensive to a capitalist, humanist, materialist, communist, anyist organization. They're all pyramid. And the willow tree people are on the first line of offense against the pyramid order, because they realize it's not reality, because they're spiritual beings. We're all spiritual beings, but we curate spirit into the world. It's our job. Other people, so it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And John is very much about bringing revelation out of heaven, what is next on the kingdom agenda, and bringing it out in word. Other people have other roles, other life roles, and it should all be in Jesus Christ. We all have all four faces. I repeat that. We all have all four faces. What do I mean by that? The living beings in Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 10, and Revelation 4. But it says each one has a primary face. And then around the other sides, imagine a cube or something, you've got the rest of the faces, but you have one primary face, or maybe you have blends, and that's our role in the earth. That's our soul role in the earth. We're made that in our soul fabrication of our character. So, but the willow tree, I'm speaking from Leviticus 23, where it's talking about building the booths. It's been a revelation in the growing, but I did hear a rabbi say as early as when I was 10 about how, but he wouldn't go into detail. I suppose it's been mulling around inside me ever since hearing that. He said, these are the 4 types of people. And I said, what do you mean 4 types of people? Difficult for a 10-year-old, that. 4 types of people? But he wouldn't go into it anymore. But that's what it is. And the 4 main frequencies on which we operate to be a whole community. And so we're meant to be building one another up in that which we are weak in. That which others are weak in. And then using our strengths in different areas to build up the others. That is the body of Christ. The vision of Jesus Christ in the earth is a body under one head. Everything else is a waste of time. If you go to the suborder of fallen principalities and powers in the Eastern faiths and New Age, we're wasting time, because we should be going to management. They tell some amounts of truth because they were in the throne of God. The rest is devious lies, so deep, like the way they've arranged for us to frit away our energy and power without kind of realizing for all these years is the depth of knowledge they have about a human being and how to sap them. And it's creating loose energy of frustration and pain and all this stuff, which feeds them. Well, how do we know that? From the Gospel of Ghostbusters, the Gospel of Frank Peretti, This Present Darkness. What was the third one I always read out? Oh, yeah, Monsters, Inc. These are realities, spiritual realities presented in media. So a bit of a long spiel starting from this house, but I'm trying to explain the larger picture, sort of the framing of what's been going on. And so while Americans want to get us into heaven, and bless them, they're far more than that because they get very organized in their Christianity, they're actually not getting to the nub of the Bible that they're reading. Because it's not about heaven and hell. Heaven and hell is the end product of what on earth goes on day to day in our life. I mean, not from works. I mean, from learning Jesus Christ live, this connection that we can have in the cross. And so we can be Jesus Christ in our form today. What is our soul doing under the lordship of Jesus Christ as he uses us? He is the vine, which is the whole thing, and we are the branches of the vine. New Age saying they are God doesn't take into consideration that this is about not being an independent being at all. Of course, they would say, we don't preach duality. But you can't get accurate enough just meditating down with a blank mind, ready for any spirit to take over. So we have to specify the spirit we live by, which is Jesus Christ now. Since the cross, we go through the cross. Why the cross? Think of it like a shredder. It's or a pencil sharpener, or you're going through the cross to have all your Genesis 3 ripped out of you, not just whether you gamble, whether you go to prostitutes, or whether you steal. No, these are outer things. No, the very spirit underneath everything that we live by as independent self. It's an independent self platform. As soon as we're on it, whether we're doing good or evil, it smells. It smells, and we know it smells. I mean, for years we've known do-gooders smell because it's coming from not the right place. Now, some people do things, obviously, from a pure heart, so then you can't generalize anything. But we have to make sure everything we do is coming from God in heaven, our original life source. We've got to go back through the cross to something greater than was in Genesis 3. We're not even going back to Genesis 3. It is superb what's been lined up for us because we were raised in Christ. There's no question about a tree of life not being able to be touched anymore, because remember, the cherubim was installed because God didn't want us fixed for eternity in a mess. So that's why Jesus took out sin. He took it out. He took out the platform. He took out the spell. He took out the initiation that was made permanently in Genesis 3 by killing us. It's the only thing he could do. He couldn't make us better. He couldn't do anything. In our spirit main being, he took us out, to use the SAS phrase. So the gospel is so much more powerful, so much more. But it's all been sitting in the Bible for years. But if you speak to a charismatic, they're all about gifts. They're all about front of house things. I mean, they're great tangible things. They're amazing things. And the presence of God is amazing, but he wants to be more than just the presence of God. He wants to possess every cell of our body. And he should do, because he made us and we are made for that. Some people said about, you can use a guitar as a tennis racket. We weren't made to be we were meant to play. Someone's understanding something really, really deeply right there as they're listening. We can be played by Satan. We're not meant to be. We're meant to be our own being, originally created. And Satan said, I can make you into an independent self, and you can be your own being, which was a lie. Everything he says is a complete lie. He took us over by that stupid lie that we believed. Is anybody getting the thing that, there's no question about everybody needs being born again, and everybody needs to wake up. The Bible is the only book that speaks the true truth. You go into any other a book that's spiritual, it doesn't tell you the truth about who you are and how you operate. It never, ever, it always sidesteps the fact that principalities and powers have got you. And that's the truth of what we experience daily. I mean, principalities and powers may offer some respite in the same way as if we pay, protection money living in Palermo, the mafia won't attack us. But they're the ones doing all the mayhem in the first place. And that's more or less a picture of how Satan's kingdom operates. If you do this, you're going to benefit. And you're going to, benefit how? All he's doing is grouping people together in a pyramid and putting people higher and higher up a pyramid by favour of someone licking his backside. It's a mathematical thing. It's not great. It's a complete mafia of the world system. It's a mafia. It's the same thing on a macro level. How many people are getting this? So bless God, we're moving on in our understanding.